Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Eco Solutions and the Get Synced series. I'm your host, Sara Troy, and my guest today is Robert Gierke of Purenessity. What a wonderful name, and also what a wonderful program and an entire company that he has here. I love what he's doing, and you will love what he's doing too, and you'll understand what his nickname is, Solar Bear, as soul, coming from the soul. And we need a lot more people like him around the world. He's helping people in business transform to the new rules and regulations of the UN, things that make this world a better place, ecologically better, humanity better, economically better. Everything can be made a lot better, folks, because when we really look at it, we have to be honest, we're in a bit of a mess. And we really do need to change the old paradigm into a new one that really does work for us in a way that is more compassionate, more creative, more inclusive, and certainly one that really does come more from the heart and the soul. So I want to dive right into this, Robert, with first and foremost, I mean, I know that you're from East Germany, so you have a whole story there. The wall coming down and things that you saw there, and then the opportunities that opened up to you. But I want to know if that was a driving force into what you're doing today, how you came up with the name. I have too many questions for you. So first, hello.
Hello, Sarah. Thanks for having me on the show. It's great to be here with
Great,
you.
great to have you here. Okay, East Germany, living there.
Yeah.
Is that I know you speak 6 languages. I know that your family really
Mhm.
thought languages were very important, which they are.
Mhm.
And very often it is our childhood that guides us down a path,
Mhm.
good or bad. Clearly it's guided you down a good path. But is
Mhm.
there anything from there, from that upbringing, from that whole experience that put you on the path that you're on now?
Yeah, so I have very vivid memories of socialism, communism. I was born in 77 and I was 12 years old when the wall came down, and I lived it, and I was a total believer in that system back in the day, so that people are equal, they work the same, they share the wealth equally. I was a believer in that system, and of course, I found out that it doesn't work, and it broke down economically, the entire system, and that people were oppressed and then locked in jail who fought for freedom, and that there was many fallacies with the system. I think that, as you know, and I had in school as a young pioneer, as we were called, I had to wear the uniform and I had to read Marx, Engels, and Learning, for instance, and I was really a believer, was into it, and I don't think that it's ever been executed in the way that theory
Intended.
describes it,
Mm-hmm.
intended to be, and I think that humanity wasn't ready yet. It
Right.
was an experiment. It was a first experiment. I had the honor to witness it for 12 years of my life. And with all its pros and cons. And I still believe that in socialism, communism, there's a deeply rooted humane thought or humane essence. And I think we can transform that into something new. I don't think that socialism, communism is the answer. I don't
No.
know that, neither do I think that free capitalism is the answer. I think there's something else. And, you mentioned too that I lived through that change when the wall came down very, very swiftly. I went to a sports school, and when I graduated from high school, I went to Arizona to study and went to the extreme opposite to
Mm.
the freest country in the world, if you will, and had this experience. And then once I left the United States and started working a for a global brand, I traveled the world and I had a team around the world. And I saw many things of which free capitalism and consumerism creates, which aren't right either. I've seen polluted rivers, I've seen all the social imbalances in the world, and that brought me to the point in 2016 where I said, with all my experiences from my upbringing, from my education and professional life, and how I see the world. I wanna live a life in purpose, and
Mm-hmm.
that and combine different elements of it, to create economic value, but to also work towards a more consciousness based, compassion based world. And my part of my role, which I want to play in this, is like to say, okay, how can we transform the private sector? How can we transform businesses to help do this, as businesses have a huge influence on the world today. Yeah.
One of the
And
biggest.
they're the biggest,
Mm-hmm.
and then once businesses become conscious of their own purpose, of their real purpose, not as it's described in socialism or free capitalism, going back to Adam Smith, etc., profit maximization and the invisible hand processes, which no one ever observed, and which probably also led to the biggest problems the world faces today, and which are also the basis for the 17 Sustainable Development Goals of the UN.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think there's a need for an entirely new definition of what private sector means in a new
Yes.
world. Yeah,
I
and I
think,
want to be part of that change team.
well, I mean, I think a huge injection has to be a sense of consciousness. Um, you know,
Absolutely.
it came and it has become, and the opulence of it has proven to be so detrimental. Of profit at all costs, and it doesn't matter who pays for it. And what we're
Right.
seeing is not only our planet paying for it, but humanity paying for it at far too high a price. And you mentioned the word balance. We're completely out of balance right now, aren't we? And I think what it is, we've lost that ethics, we've lost the dignity, we've lost the free will to care for one another. That's weakness. That is where the strength is, isn't it? When we step up and
Absolutely.
care for one another, that's really where we're developing the seeds of compassion, of love, of bringing us together in our creative forces. This conquer and divide has proven through history not to work, and it doesn't work in the corporate world either. It's just become such a competitive field that just leaves people in the dust, and we have to change the system. But it's the how, isn't it? It's the how. And I love what you're doing, how you've dedicated yourself to this in the business of helping people through this transformation, because they're going to have to transform. They cannot keep on as they are. Their days are numbered, however much they think that they've still got the whole power, because if we don't, the balance is just going to tilt us completely, and the cost is going to be far too high
Right.
globally. And we're really at that tilting stage right now. How have
Mm.
you found companies? You've got new companies that I think are more conscious and more willing to embrace a different format, a different platform. But you've got older companies that really don't want to change anything because the profit is coming in. So, let's talk to new companies right now. Do you find that they're far more open into embracing the new rules and regulations and bringing humanity into the play?
Absolutely. I think there's a huge segment in the startup scene which is already social and green impact minded, which found a company with exactly that
Mm.
um, purpose in mind. Then we talk about the triple bottom line, which is people, planet, profit.
Yes, I love
And
that.
you
Can we say
also
that again? People, planet, profit.
profit.
People
So
first. People first.
exactly.
Right.
People first, planet, and then profit.
Yes.
And this is how you want to build your business model around this. You want to track how you execute against it. You want to measure how you
Mm.
perform. What do you do for people? How can you tell you're successful in working towards this goal? And same for Mother Earth, the planet, and the same. Of course, a company also exists to create a
Yes.
value add for society, economic value add to make life more to benefit, in essence, to benefit also collective evolution, and to
Right.
express love and beauty and help self-expression of the individual, but also as the collective whole. So I deeply believe in it, and we see the beginnings of which, and it starts right there where you have these small companies, the startups, 2, 3 people joining forces and setting stuff up, and um, this is one sector. Another sector is like family-owned, privately
Mm-hmm.
owned businesses, which have maybe been around for 4 or 5 generations, but these companies also have perspective. Um, the the owners and the managers of the company, of course, want to realize a profit, but not at all costs. They
Right.
also want to leave a legacy. They also want to
Yes.
create good in the world, and this is the ones who are receptible to this idea, and the ones which I target in my work currently, to draw a sharp line to what I currently call still, which is existing, the own dynamics of the stock market system.
Mm-hmm.
When you have Wall Street, you have to be a Wall Street company or a Nasdaq company. They still have to be in front of shareholders every quarter, and the top management is incentivized by annual targets, and this is how they receive the bonus. So it's a self it's in a way kind of like self-accelerating
Mm-hmm.
to to a sad degree, but
Yeah.
I think at one point in time, also this system has to come to the awakening that this is not what it's all
About.
about. It's not like the short-term gains. It's not the annual bonus, like board members getting millions and millions of dollars or euros, which they probably will never consume in their lives. Maybe they
Right.
blow it all, but probably they won't. And then then the question should be, so what for? What's
Mm-hmm.
the deal? Well, there should be. I share the point of view that they should be incentivized to make long-term decisions, to make sustainable decisions for people and the planet. So why not come up with new incentive schemes,
Right.
which have a longer-term horizon, say 20 to 30 years, and so that the payout is kind of like phased, and the
Yes.
the board member today has an incentive to really decide for people and for planet and for profit in a meaningful way or in a
Right.
balanced way,
Not
not
for
like
their own pocket profit book, but for the
absolutely.
investment into the company and its potential growth. What we're seeing right now, if there is a field of abundance of food, it's just picking and gouging all of it, wasting so much of it, not replanting the seeds. Not
Yeah.
planting it so that you eat this now and then you can eat that tomorrow, and that's going to be growing by next week. It There seemed to be a very gluttonous attitude towards everything in the
Hmm.
consumerism. More is more, and as
Hmm.
human beings we don't need more, because the
Hmm.
amount of people I interview that became a slave to the six figures, the corporate, the big house,
Hmm.
the big car, and everything else,
Hmm.
and to say, but how come I feel so empty? I am supposed to feel happy
Hmm.
now I have this,
Hmm.
but I am empty
Hmm.
inside. I am poor inside.
Hmm.
And they've walked
Hmm.
away from it, followed something that's really meaningful and passionate
Hmm.
and of a service to humanity, and they feel abundantly rich now. Not only that, they're making still good money, but they're
Hmm.
also realizing they don't need to have that big money to be happy. So I'm seeing a real shift in that paradigm coming from people. Um,
Yeah, that's
and
great.
it's good to see, because they're the driving force of the new businesses. Uh,
Hmm.
but we've still got the old businesses that are very severely trenched in their
Hmm.
old paradigm. And some of those people are kind of in higher power than they should be
Hmm.
politically.
Hmm.
And and then they steer the ship. They're trying to steer the ship backwards. You know,
Totally.
and it's I do think that what you're doing, we're supporting the new businesses and the new, especially new millennials and everything else. They don't want the old ways, right?
Yes.
And
Yes. Yeah.
they're going to steer us out. But it's the meantime, we're in rocky waters.
Yeah. And I think these rocky waters will continue for quite a while. I think I also deeply believe that the pain which we have to face will still have to
Yeah,
increase a little bit to steer towards the collective awakening.
yeah.
And we are we're aware of that. And what I was going to say is that in essence, it's the new generations which drive it and which demand this new reality. So
Yeah.
today we talk about Generation Z, and the ones, the babies who are born today, don't even
Yes.
really have a name yet. So,
Yes.
but they will be faced with much more pain in the world than we've experienced in our lifetime. Guess what? They will turn to, and I deeply believe in this collective awakening.
Yes.
They will demand the transparency of each, in each product which they consume and of each company they buy
Yeah.
from, to understand whether this company has done socially good and
Hmm.
has at least not harmed Mother Earth, but also done something around a greater purpose. And we see the beginnings today.
Yes, we do.
There's first movers today out there, and they are very successful with the educated target consumers who get it and probably also have the income to do so. But like, I believe in this collective awakening. I believe in a positive outcome, and that's why I want to be part of that change team and driving
Right.
it in the private sector.
You know, it's we are driven by consumerism, but our consumerism can drive us down the right path. We know that there is a plastic problem in the world right now. So
Sure.
now it's invited innovation for some companies to go, okay, biodegradable plastics,
Hmm.
plastics that can be reused. You've got people making roads out of them, people making houses out of them,
Hmm.
making clothing out of plastic in a way, taking recycling and doing that because they saw a need. We're incredibly creative when we see there's a need for something. Uh, and,
Absolutely.
and what we need to do is step more into that creativity and get behind these companies that see an idea. And there is abundance amount of ideas out there. And, less putting money into what has been, let's start putting money into what can be, that especially reduces, the need for certain resources, or, that saves the planet. People are always worried about losing their job,
Yeah.
but we can create jobs with our creativity. We can create new opportunities. It does mean, though, that certain people are going to have to perhaps be re-educated in different type of jobs than they've used to being doing. And that's a willingness that we've got to step up into doing, isn't it?
Absolutely. I totally concur with you, Sarah. I think the history of humanity has proven that, in tough times, in times of pain and scarcity, it always also spurred creativity and innovation and humankind. And so I deeply believe in this. And myself, I work for a big sports company today. Don't want to make advertising here, but they feature the three stripes. And they have a partnership with a NGO called Parley for the Oceans, and they fish plastic out of the ocean. And
Yes.
they developed a process of making fiber out of this ocean plastic into constructing midsoles and outsoles out of this. And they make a fully functioning running shoe out of ocean plastic. I think this is one example where even a big stock market company has stepped into this field.
Mm.
But there's many small players which now
Yes.
play with plastic, ocean plastic fiber, and send this message. And it's only the beginning. You can look at every other big global problem, and there's people who wrap their heads around it. You have the co-working spaces like Impact Hub, etc., which are exactly geared towards working to benefit the 17 sustainable development goals of the UN. And you have very creative and very educated people creating businesses just
Right.
to work towards these. And I think that's very inspirational. I
Yes.
think that's I really feel energized when I'm in a place like this. I feel the love, I feel the passion of these people to give their lives and their lives work meaning.
You
And
see,
yeah.
people want to change. I hear you. We've got to change, but I don't know how. I don't know where. Now, we're
Mm.
seeing veganism on the climb, on the rise, like unbelievable. From 20 years ago, and seeing vegan foods in supermarkets now, more and more restaurants picking up, people creating leather look, vegan leather that looks and is more durable than leather. Um,
Mm.
again, it is consumer driven. When the consciousness drives us forward,
Mm-hmm.
again, we will find the alternatives. I don't
Yes,
want to be without my leather bag. Well, you don't need to be. Here's something that looks just like leather. It's even tougher, but no animal had to die for it. You know, um,
exactly.
when we're driven by the consciousness, we're going to look for the solutions. We're going to look for the alternatives. But I think the consciousness is something that really has to be put first and foremost. It says, I
Mm-hmm.
love the fact that you've put people first, people, planet, profit,
Mm-hmm.
because when we invest in the people and they're conscious of how they use the resources of the planet, a profit will always be made
Yeah.
because you're doing it the right way. Now, a lot of businesses, I don't want to lose my profit, but it's just a question of investing in people. Is not only are you creating jobs, they now have money to be consumers of products.
Mm-hmm.
They
Mm-hmm.
have loyalty because they're treated with dignity and respect. They're
Mm-hmm.
going to stay with you. They're going to be more creative in their work. They're
Mm-hmm.
going to look to using resources of the planet that isn't pillaging the planet,
Yes.
and it will create more profit.
Absolutely. And this is, my business is called Purenessity, which both features the word pureness and purity.
Yes.
But in essence, it stands for purpose in business for dignity. So it's a word play around these three words, purpose in business for dignity. And you mentioned dignity a couple of times now. That's why it really resonates with me.
Yes.
And, you're absolutely right. Consciousness development is where it starts.
Yeah.
And the first formula to crack is the happiness formula. In
Yeah.
today's consumer society, in this fast-paced consumer society of the West, you alluded to it earlier, the more you have, the happier. This is just the mental
Yes.
picture which is drawn and communicated in mass media. The more you have, the happier you are. And the more you
Successful marketing.
absolutely. So,
Yeah.
and I lived in this world, I lived in this
Mhm.
world for 14
Mhm.
years. So I know what I'm talking about. And all these, of course, the perfect family is being portrayed as well. But then
Mhm.
there's a lot about titles and status, etc. The nut can be cracked if you look into in this modern emerging field of happiness research.
Yeah.
As there's big programs now in the top universities around the world. So Harvard does it, Yale does it, Cambridge does it, Oxford does it. Then there's of course the mindfulness gurus like Deepak Chopra and Eckhart
Yeah.
Tolle and the likes, and or Ariana Huffington,
Yes.
who even dedicated a business to it, Thrive, the platform. And
Mhm.
I think that's where it starts. When you come when you get people to really innately comprehend that it's not about the status, it's not about
Yeah.
amassing money, it's not about um, all the fake surfaces, but that the key drivers of happiness are just five pillars. It's about good
Mhm.
personal relationships, it's good health, mental and physical, it's being part of something bigger, is of course a little to cover your basic needs, and it's a balance in your life. And if you ticked all these boxes, then like you said earlier, also people feel really fulfilled and they feel happy and they feel alive. They feel really genuinely alive and happy.
Right.
And I think when you every human being I trust has had that experience, or has had moments in his or her life where they would say, yes, from experience I can confirm that. So
Yeah.
if you have this conversation with people, they know the inner truth confirms it. But
Yes.
there's still what is the barrier is that risk of loss, that the old paradigm
Mm.
might still somehow be the truth, and that they kind of like fall into the abyss once they trust their hearts and throw
Yes.
everything into the new world. So I think this is the big lever to get to the tipping point to create a new reality for this world. Right?
Here in Self Discovery Radio TV, I've interviewed myself around 1,200 people. And the common denominator is this, it's called self-discovery for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
We can't go out there and join the orchestra of life until we learn what our instrument is. And, we need to embrace that instrument, and it needs to come from this word heart.
Yeah.
And, everybody's been looking for an external thing to make them inwardly happy. That inner happiness is our personal journey. We have to look in, and we have to ignite our hearts, ignite our souls, ignite our spirits, and step into a meaningful purpose, because that is what life is about. It is about community. It is being of service to one another, not servitude, service. And it's coming from the heart, from the compassion. And the more you come from that and exude that out, the more you actually will receive back, because you are raising that vibration, raising that frequency. So when we are willing to step into our hearts and find something that's meaningful, that's purposeful, that comes from that drive, like it does with you, pure necessity. It's coming from your soul. That's the reason why you're called Soul Robert. People know it comes from your soul. When we step into that, then that is what is our neon sign. That is what our advertising plaque is. People can feel it from you. They know it's who you are. We have to step into our truth. This is our instrument. This is my I am. Then we bring it to the orchestra of life and create that beautiful symphony. But the ownership isn't pointing fingers to everyone else. That finger needs to come back to us and say, well, what am I doing? And it's not a blame game, but it is time for us to step up and take some responsibility over our own choices, not only for our own lives, but for the resonating lives around us and for the planet. Everybody needs now to step up, don't they?
Absolutely. Very nicely said, Sarah. I really applaud you for that. So
Thank
it
you.
was, I totally embrace everything that you just said, and I echo it, and I try to work towards it in my work and my private conversations, but also in business conversations, talking with young founders, talking with established business leaders of medium-sized or even big companies, and try to plant that seed, to change, to drive the change process.
Well, that's another big word, isn't it? Change. A lot of people are afraid of change, even though they know the system isn't working. Nobody's benefiting from it except for a few. And we're seeing everything disintegrate, but people are afraid of the change because of the unknown. Well, it doesn't have to be so unknown if somebody like you has already shown them the steps they can take in order to embrace the change. But if they don't embrace the change, they're going to fall down that crevice, because that's inevitable. Change is coming. And, the reason why we call this, Let's Get Sync series is, changing the emotional climate around climate change, is because until we change this emotional climate of accepting change, that we need to make the change in order to survive as a humanity in business, in our communities and for the planet. And that it's not as hard because people like you have already paved the path. So can you go through a little bit of a process of what kind of changes you would take a company through in, in making those changes that a lot of people are so fearful about, but really aren't that difficult?
Mm-hmm. Well, when I start working with the company, and I always start at top management, working with the management team, is I hold a workshop called Finding the Company's Purpose. And I start with individual work with everybody. So everybody works individually to really truly investigate what they deeply care about, and everybody's got his history and made his experiences. And people do care about things,
Yes.
They might have been a descendant of a refugee family, or you might care about animals or nature, Mother Earth, global warming, whatnot, equal rights, etc. So people have an opinion on these things, and if you ask them if they would also like to through their work to benefit this cause, you would get a resounding yes.
Yes.
So, and so from this individual work, I tried to find a common denominator through the management team, and then also kind of like tie it to the company's existence, say philosophy, existence. Sometimes it's a certain sector might suggest certain themes or certain goals of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, which might lend themselves to work towards that goal. Other times it's totally a common denominator of the people who work there, because people
Yes.
make a company and people create value not only for people and planet, but also for profit,
Right.
and it's like, so I try to 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 guide this team to identify the true purpose of the company,
Right.
and like, beyond or beyond the profit, in the dimensions of people and planet. And once we've identified that, then I go and do the deep dives and say,
Yeah.
okay, what does that mean for your company? If you look, every company's got some input factors, be it a service company or product company, it doesn't matter. You get input factors, and you can think about how we procure these input factors, how can we improve, or what kind of difference can we make in terms of people and planet, or the inner workings of the company. What do we do, our processes, how we create a service or product, how can we benefit a certain 17 or one of the development goals, which are part of the 17 development goals of the UN, or what comes out, be it monetary means, be it money or finished goods. What can go back in the cycle, which the people care about
Mhm.
in terms
Yeah.
of finished goods or money, and then we try to fix it and to hardwire it into the company. Give you an example of my own company. It's
Yes.
like, the inner working of my company is, I try to work with company because I'm a consultant. I do consulting work focused on the transformation of businesses. So I'm focused on this transformation of the private sector of all kinds of companies, startups and medium-sized big companies. So this is one purpose which I feature, and the output of my company, in a hybrid version, it's like, of the profit which I make, 33%, a third, goes back into the cycle,
Nice.
about people, about causes which I really care about.
Right.
So I split it evenly into 11% chunks. The polar bear, or the solar bear, is about climate change. So
Right.
became the emotional icon of climate change. The polar bear, the sad symbol. So I really identify with the polar bear. I want to make a difference and want to help him and want to help humanity with that. Second
Right.
one, when I stepped out of my previous big global company, first thing I did, because I deeply care about refugees as well, I went to
Mm-hmm.
Greece, to one of the islands, and I served in a refugee camp for 6 weeks, working with refugees from Syria who escaped the IS war.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third part is education in Africa, or
Yes.
development, sustainable development in Africa. I have a partner who has a social enterprise and organization in Uganda, called EDU Child Uganda, because I think also in Africa it starts with consciousness development and with education, to educate the next generation about some very basic rights, but
Yes.
about human rights. Oftentimes people don't even understand what corruption is. It's always been that way. To
Yes.
change the programming, it needs that basic work, about human rights, about birth control, about
Mm-hmm.
a functioning democracy, etc. And I deeply believe that Africa needs a lot of help from the global community in a very symbiotic way, if you will. So this is the example of my own company, but you could relate this. I could work with any company in the world. If it's like a mom and pop hot dog stand
Yes.
on the corner, or a multi-billion-dollar company, there's 30 million companies in the world of all kinds of different sizes, etc., on all kinds of different sectors. And every company could take a cause to work towards the three Ps, or to take a stand. And then we'd already live in a different world. But I think we get there.
Oh, and I say I interview ordinary people doing extraordinary things, and people look at you and you go, "Oh, you must, always have had the advantage and the extraordinariness." No, you chose to step into your extraordinariness, because you
Yeah.
saw the need. And I'm an ordinary person who this was carrot was put in front of me, and I had no idea where it was going to take me. And I've
Mm.
just opened up my own non-profit, and it's quite simple. We do things like documentaries and like collaborative books from the people I've interviewed have got great stories. We sell those, raise the money for it, and for that then goes takes the services from the people in the directory of the people I've interviewed, coaches, mentors, health practitioners, etc. And for the
Oh,
people that have been bottomed out, because we know when the rug's been pulled out from underneath you, that redirect in life, that generally hits your wallet. And you
yeah.
can't
Hmm.
afford the services that help you get back on your feet into a productive person. And so I want that funding to be there to help people get their dignity back, find a
Right.
meaning in life, step into their own beingness. Because
Yeah.
I think the more we invest in people in helping them become who they're meant to be and step into their meaningful purpose, the more we're contributing to the fruit and the benefit of each other and the planet. And this throwaway society where we so easily throw everything away, people, everything. We've become so wasteful on everything. And
Yeah.
it's like, whoa, 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 we have to put a stop to that. And, 33% is massive. I'm kind of go by the philosophy of 10%. 10% is what you give away and everything. And if you
Hmm.
can give more, do it. Right now, I give everything away because I'm one of those people. I haven't
Hmm.
learned yet to make the profit in order to give away. I'm still trying to work that one out. But
Hmm.
the thing is that if we step into consciousness, whether you have a company or whether you are working, and you just say, I'm going to take 10% of my salary, or if it's not money you can give away 10% of your time,
Yeah.
right? And contribute somewhere. The thing is that if we don't stop investing
Hmm.
in people again, in that
Hmm.
dignity, in that heart,
Hmm.
give so many people around the world just don't feel heard, don't feel seen,
Yeah.
don't feel appreciated. And you talked about Africa. I've interviewed quite a few people from Africa and from
Hmm.
Uganda. There is a
Hmm.
lovely organization there that they work so hard to raise those children and educate those children. But
Yeah.
they're up against, restraints all the time and trying to get money to support them. But they work really hard at it.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of organizations generally coming from people who have been there, done it, and experienced it, that
Hmm.
stepped up to say, we need to do something about it. So
Yeah.
I think we have to step out of our complacency, don't we? I'm all right, Jack. Why should I care about anyone else? Because
Yeah.
that's what we're here for, to
Yeah.
care about everyone
Yeah.
else.
Yeah. No, absolutely, Sarah. I think it's complacency. It's fear also. Of fear
Mm.
not having enough.
Yes.
It's about fear not being enough, and
Yeah.
those are tightly
Huge.
correlated,
Yes.
hugely correlated. And I think that's also a part of that consciousness development, that awakening, which
Yeah.
needs to take place.
Yes.
I had a huge degree of awakening when I read the book. The Soul of Money by Lynn Twist, which you may
Mm-hmm.
or may not know. She's an activist, and I know her through an impact entrepreneur network, which is global, which is called Hive.org. And I got to meet her, and she gave a great talk, and we talked afterwards. And I read her books afterwards, and she goes into what is money. Like
Yes.
money. You said money is
It's a
is
commodity.
a it's a
Tool.
commodity, and it's a saved energy in a way.
Yes.
Back in the
Yes.
day, you had
An
barter trade,
exchange.
and
Mm-hmm.
you'd an exchange, and it helped to facilitate trade and to exchange things, and to exchange the energy and the time which you put into doing
Right.
things.
It's
And
not
I
a
think that,
definition of who you are or
no,
your worth.
absolutely. And I think
Mm.
that's a huge paradigm shift. That's a
Yes.
huge mind shift. If you can, instill this consciousness in people or see
Yes.
this plant, I think then we'll have a different conversation. We have a different behavior, and we tremendously reduce fear.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Hugely. I mean, the thing about fear, it's always based in the unknown, the unsure. And when you learn to know yourself and become
Yeah.
comfortable with who you are, you look at the unknown more as an opportunity, filled with possibilities. The adventurism, the exploring nature comes out, and you're less fearful because
Yeah.
you are comfortable with who we are in this vessel, in who
Hmm.
we are and what we stand for. And I
Hmm.
think the fear is very much driven when the exterior and the interior of a person is in turmoil. So,
Absolutely.
we really need to bring that peace and calmness within ourselves, which again is stop
Mhm.
living by the exterior expectations, especially society's expectations, because they're going to always demand from you what you can't give.
Mhm.
Setting to know who you are, why you are, what it is, your own consciousness, your own inner dialogue. Am I contributing? Do I care? Do I have a heart? What is it that I want to do, that I want to step up? And live from that paradigm. You're just not going to be diving into the fear. That doesn't mean you're not going to be fearful over something now and again, but you're not going to be crippled by the fear into not moving forward. Instead, it's going to be more about, oh, what an opportunity for me to explore. Hence the
Mhm.
reason this show is called Self-Discovery. Because
Yeah.
in our self-discovery, we discover how awesome we really are, don't we?
Yeah, yeah, totally. And I love self-discovery. It's getting, like you said, like fear is part of our operating system, and it
Yes.
served us well in the past. But we have to put it in perspective, and also in the perspective of the awakening, who we
Yeah.
really are. The
Yes.
vibrational beings, which occasionally collapse into particles and appear as people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think. Driving this consciousness that you have this one life to make a difference, to
Mm.
benefit the overall, to be part of it. I think if that consciousness or if that desire becomes stronger, then you automatically reduce fear,
Yes.
because you drive living towards being in the present moment. And in the present moment, you don't care so much about your past programmings, and that you're only worth when you have stuff,
Right.
and you don't care about what could be tomorrow, but you
In the
trust,
now.
you're in the now, and you have complete trust that things will work out as your life unfolds, as you as a being unfolds,
Yeah.
and I think this is a huge driver to a more harmonious development of people together. If you look at it, we are part of the universe becoming aware of ourselves, self-discovery
Yes.
as a
Yes.
collective, and and I think we have a huge opportunity to
Huge.
design that or unfold in a very positive manner.
Absolutely. I mean, this is an exciting time
Yeah.
because, what we're seeing is a lot of the clamps coming off, a lot of the restraints of you can't, because the
Hmm.
consciousness has been pushing up against so much to break those barriers down.
Hmm.
Now you have scientists where it used to be if you were a spiritual person or you lived in soul or heart, you had to be far out there, man,
Hmm.
delusional and disconnected from life. They're now
Yeah.
realizing that people who resonate on that, in that soul, heart, spirit realm, whatever you want to call it, are actually just operating at a higher frequency, on a higher vibration. And that
Hmm.
vibration automatically changes the frequencies of those around them.
Hmm.
The old water test, the angry water, the clear water, the
Yeah.
ignored water. We are
Yes.
made up of water, right? So if we're going to be
Hmm.
around anger and discord, that's the way we're going to be. If we choose to be around joy, meaningful purpose, contribution, participation, we're raising and elevating our own frequency. And the more you do that, the more you're stepping into your own self-love and the love of what you do, and the more you're actually sending out better vibration and invitation. And we are seeing this on a big scale. And it's a wonderful movement. I'd like to see it a lot faster, but it's
Yeah.
one domino at a time, right? But we're seeing this in the business realm so much now, where the janitor and the CEO are just as important. It's not a
Hmm.
discarding of other people. I'm more important than you.
Yeah.
Everybody's role is important for the success of that business.
Hmm. Yeah, another what you just said brought up a great metaphor to me. I mean, we all understand this. as people who are interested in awakening and self-discovery and such, that the butterfly is the symbol of
Hmm.
transformation. I heard
Yes.
this great story, and it was really, biologically grounded or founded, about what really happens in the transformation process. So when the caterpillar um, gets into the cocoon, what actually happens is he dies. He
Hmm.
literally dies.
Hmm.
There's a decaying going on, and what's left over of the caterpillar is such called nutritive soup. And this is still proteins and um, all kinds of elements in there, but basically the caterpillar has died. And what happens next is, out of a sudden, miraculously, you might call it, or divinely, there's a first, and they call it the imaginal cell. So
Hmm.
the imaginal cell is the first cell of the new arising butterfly. And then there's a second imaginal cell and a third, and so forth. And they form clusters until all of the nutritional soup is used up, and a whole new being has
Yes.
come alive. So there's a dying and a and
Yes.
a and a and a creation going on and at the same time, and eventually the butterfly is ready, and he gets out of the cocoon and flies away, and it's beautiful to look at.
Yes.
And I think what we are going through right now is also that process of the
Yeah.
old system. The old has still to die, and the new is simultaneously arising.
Yes.
And and um, and um, I deeply believe in a tipping point where it becomes a new reality. And the tipping point only needs, I think, a little over 30% of the population, and then
Uh,
you
uh,
create it. You know? Yeah,
yes, I completely agree with you. I actually think that we're and the thing is, a lot of people say, "Well, I don't see it," and I said, "No, it's not on CNN." This
yeah,
is a movement of people that are using different channels to make this happen. If you went mainstream media, they would misconstrue it, or they would find a way, to put fear into the movement. So things like these shows and podcasts and TED Talks and all these other type of movements of people just
yes,
getting out and doing and allowing the domino effect to happen. I always say the inspiration for the invitation, and it's inviting those that are inspired by what other people are doing, and then
right.
realizing they themselves can do something. And so
Hmm.
we're seeing that movement. The current of the waters are changing, but everybody's looking for the tidal wave, but the waters are changing. And when that tilt is there, when we're over that certain percentage, then you're going to see a really big momentum, because I think
Yeah.
it's already really exponentially growing, but we're going to see evidence of that. And that's the reason why we had to have what's going on around the world. We had to show
Hmm.
the opulence, we had to show the greed, we had
Yeah.
to show the total disregard for humanity or for
Hmm.
planet. We had to show it and be disgusted by it, because that was the only
Yeah.
thing that's going to drive us into change.
I believe that totally. I also, like to take this systemic view, which you just described, and I totally sign up to it. It took this pain to lead us to
Yeah.
a new, brighter, more fully alive, happier version of this world.
Yeah.
And then it's part of it.
Yeah.
And I think many people around the world are having the discussions which we have. Maybe not that degree, but like in essence, they do have that. Because
It's if
people
the
see,
fundamental core of what we're all saying is there. We
yeah,
might approach it from a different way, and that's okay. That's okay to have a
yeah,
different approach or a different perspective, but it's the
hmm,
fundamental core. As the
hmm,
Pope said, which I agree, it doesn't matter what
hmm,
faith you are, as long as it's based in love and kindness. Well, my
yeah,
philosophy of life is as a humanity. If we come from
yeah,
love and kindness and caring and respect and dignity, we've already
yeah,
got the ingredients, right?
yes, yes, Sarah, absolutely, absolutely. And what you just said, it dawns on people. Many
Yeah.
people, even though they function, many of them miserably function in the old system, and they're not happy, but they run by the same program. But it dawns on them, and they have these conversations, but they're still on the understanding level.
Yes.
There's the first level is understanding. The second one is getting into action it.
Yeah.
You know, stepping out of it,
Yes.
overcoming your limitations, overcoming your fears, to jump with both feet into your purpose, to to say, yes, this is why I'm on this planet,
Right.
this is why I'm alive, and this is what I can contribute to the overall. And
Right.
yes, I also want kindness and happiness and
Mm.
respect and bliss and
Yes,
beauty for everyone.
exactly.
Uh,
I say, step off into the abyss, blind, deaf, and dumb, in order to see, hear, and feel.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it's only when we're willing to walk blindly forward, but with
yeah,
ourselves, not with
yeah,
our fear, but with ourselves, in trust that we actually are the tool, we have the tools, we have the knowledge to deal with what is in front of us, and to
hmm,
invite not the fear or the danger, but to invite the possibilities, because the energy begets energy. And if you go about with positive energy, that is what you're going to attract.
yes,
So what we
yes,
feed will grow. And I think this is what's really important right now. What are you feeding? Are you feeding the angst against government, or, I'm losing my job, or I hate the next person because of their color and their faith and their religion and their sex and their this and their that and everything else? Or are we going to feed, I care, I wish to love, I wish to step into heart, I want to step into heart, and let that
mhm,
grow, and then see the difference. And then see the
yeah.
difference. Just do an experiment yourself, right?
Mhm. Yeah, I think I'm a big fan of Joe Dispenza as well. He's one of the guys who measure all these things and crosses the boundaries between spirituality
Yeah.
and modern science and quantum
Mm-hmm.
physics, etc. And he always calls it, just make it your experiment with your destiny. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
exploration.
just
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
exploration.
Yeah.
Just try it out. You know what
Yeah.
you got to lose.
What have
Yeah,
you got to lose? Absolutely nothing. Because
yeah,
you're unhappy where you are. It's not working.
exactly,
So why
exactly.
stay? We
Yeah.
know the world is in the cocooning right now. It's in a
Hmm.
death. All the
Hmm.
systems and paradigms and everything, and resistance is futile.
Hmm.
And the more that we're seeing people look at what is not working and say, I'm not going to buy into that anymore. I want something different. And the more they feed that energy, I want to do it a different way. I want my life to count for something. I want to contribute. Now we start seeing that creative process. We start seeing the inspiration. We start seeing the doors of possibilities open. But it's got to come from the people. We're
Yeah,
working for the people, we're striving for the people, but the people themselves have got to step up individually as well as
yeah,
collectively.
absolutely, Sarah. I totally agree with you. It's everybody's got it inside, yeah,
Yes,
and the voice is there, and
yes,
and the consciousness development is to remove some old toxic programming and
right,
to allow people to be themselves and to live their divine being they're meant to be and to contribute in divine ways
right,
to this part. And I think that process is called that consciousness development.
yes.
And the more people do it, the more you allow others to follow that path, or you encourage them, you give
You
them
know, as,
motivation to do the
as a
same.
business owner, you want to be able to say you've answered the three P's. You
Hmm.
invested in your people,
Hmm.
you've been planetary aware,
Hmm.
and that the profit that you're making, you will take a percentage to seed opportunities for others. When
Hmm.
you're looking at that beautiful triangle, you've stepped into dignity, you've stepped
Hmm.
into purpose,
Hmm.
consideration, collaboration.
Hmm.
You will be so much more enriched by it, as will everybody that is a part of it.
Hmm.
People are so tired of having to have 2 or 3 part-time jobs because
Hmm.
companies are, cutting out the full-time jobs. They're so tired of just being another number, or
Hmm.
not being appreciated, working. I have a friend who worked 33 years with a company. Someone else took the company over, invited him for breakfast and said, you're finished, you're gone now.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's it. No, thank you for your service for 33 years. Nothing. Had to fight for a
Yeah.
severance pay. We've got to
Yeah.
stop this. If we've got to show some appreciation and gratitude. And when we step into those words and those energies, we really do start becoming part of the solution.
Yes, absolutely. And it just, to me, it feels natural to weave purpose into a business model. You know, the old model was profit maximization and then philanthropy. There's a lot of philanthropists around the world, but they went the path of becoming very rich and then giving.
Yes,
I think
for
you
tax
don't.
exemption.
Probably so. I also
Mm,
believe that there's one who really give from the heart.
yeah,
You know,
there are a few
but
that do it first from there. Yeah.
yeah, then there's. But I think you'd be much happier on your path if you naturally integrate it
Yes.
already from the get go into your business model.
Yes. Yes.
And people who work there have a much greater sense of purpose working for this company because they know they benefit a purpose bigger than just profit. But
What you're looking
people,
at on the trickle down effect, which they
exactly,
talk in economics,
it's
that trickle
it's
down effect is truly
yeah,
benefiting people in the way that it was
yeah,
really meant to, right?
yeah, the trickle down effect, the halo effect. You know, I'm
Yeah.
a marketeer from by my background, and
Yeah.
that's really what's happening.
Yeah.
And also as a marketeer can tell you, your marketing story writes itself because
Yes.
next generation consumer will ask, you know, what do you do? You know, how do you benefit the overall? And
What do you stand
I
for?
think,
Hmm.
what do you stand for? And I think digitalization will create this transparency that
Yeah.
there's no dark places. That will not be a black box anymore in the future. It
Right.
will be blatantly transparent. I think that's one of the positive sides of digitalization, that companies will be completely transparent, and that this lays the foundation for that purpose-driven brand building or purpose-driven
Yeah. Well,
business
people
building.
don't want the cloak and dagger anymore, do they? It's
Yeah,
like, stop eluding, stop hiding. I want transparency,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And it doesn't
yeah,
matter
yeah,
whether you're a solopreneur or you're a big corporation. You know,
yeah,
I always say to people, before they're buying your product, they're buying you. And do they
yeah.
feel comfortable with the purchase of you? Because
Hmm.
now they will trust you with whatever your business is because they like who you are and what you stand for. You
Hmm.
are your business, now, however
Hmm.
big you are, and how you conduct yourself and treat others will show how you're going to do business with people.
Yes, yes, yes to all what you said. It's absolutely, and I think yeah, and people who have that mindset, who are purpose-driven leaders and business leaders, they will drive that transparency. They'll say,
Yes.
look, this is like, I want to show you every little corner, every little aspect of my business, and this is it. They'll disclose everything. They don't have anything to hide, you know,
Right.
because there's nothing to hide. It's like that. This is
If
who
you've
they
got
are.
something to hide, it's worrying. What is it you've
Yeah,
got to hide? Does that mean I can't trust you?
yeah.
That's the thing. It's transparency, which doesn't mean, as the British would say, showing your knickers. What transparency is, just honesty. This
Yeah,
is who I am. This is what I'm going to do. What I say is the truth. And
yeah.
that's all we really want. We're so tired as
Hmm.
nations of being lied to.
Hmm.
How
Yeah.
can people find you? How can they be a part of what you're doing? How can you help them? Can you let everyone know?
Yeah, I'm currently based. My headquarters is based out of Berlin, Germany, but I work around the world. So I take on projects and clients everywhere. So in Canada, in the US, in Asia, and in Africa. You can go to my website where you find all the information, contact information. It's purenessity.com. So as pureness and ity.com. It has my name is Rob at purenessity.com. So send me an email with feedback. I'd love to hear from all the listeners on the radio. Yeah, and that's I operate globally. I do projects globally. I have business partners globally, and I would love to work on many more interesting projects in the most different sectors and company sizes, etc. And
And you
I'm
don't
very
you don't
excited about
discern
this.
by size. Whether somebody's
No,
small and starting out, or whether it's a big company that's wanting to reconstruct.
yeah,
It's really coming from, like, where is the heart? What is their
yes,
intent?
absolutely,
Right.
yeah,
Because you can't
correct.
help anyone until they're willing to say, I wish to change, or I willingly ask for the help. Because,
Yeah,
you're
there has
asking
to
them
be.
to step into the consciousness. You can't do that unless they're willing.
Yeah, there has to be a certain openness at
Yeah.
least. You know, I think I've enough material and which can tickle people,
Yes.
which can bring it out from people. When I get the chance to talk with them, when I get the chance to have this first workshop with them, and I think then they really open up and they really engage in the idea. I need this first opportunity to have a personal contact with people, and then I think that's, and 99% of the times that's the foot in the door.
Mhm. Well, you're an ethical person, and in your own ethics, that's what you're presenting. And if they don't wish to be ethical, they're not going to open that door any further. But
Yeah.
if they're looking for the quick fix or the quick dollar, you're not the person. You're
No.
driven by the consciousness, the contribution, the intent, the long-term view, and the 3 Ps. People,
Yes.
planet, profit.
Yeah.
And if you are somebody out there listening or watching this right now, and you need that help, because that's what your philosophy is, that's what your foundation is, then Robert might be the person to help you set things up, the building structure of it for you to thrive. Because the more people are successful at doing this, the more that shift is going to happen even faster. And it becomes the new platform for others to follow. And any old businesses that have not yet changed, when they see new businesses getting their business, because they prefer the way, the clients prefer the way they're being treated, then they're going to have to change or go by the wayside, because that's the way it goes, right?
Absolutely. So I'm a guide for companies to transform towards to becoming a purpose-driven company or
Right.
purpose-driven brand.
Yeah. Following guidelines, certainly following the ethics and the dignity and the respect of the people, and showing them how abundant their profit can be by following those practices.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it.
Absolutely. And there's nothing wrong with money. I mean,
No,
money isn't bad.
no.
Money
You've got more to give
only
away
has,
the more you
exactly.
make.
Yeah. 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 And
Well, this has
that's
been absolutely great, Robert. I mean, we're in the Let's Get Sync series here under Eco Solutions, the selfdiscoveryradiotv.com. And, the people that we have under this series right now are just purely, extraordinary, exceptional people who have stepped into their own consciousness, their own meaningful purpose. And each one of them have found their calling. And, for some many, many years in development of this calling, but that tenacity and persistence and belief in what they're doing. And I'm a huge believer in collaboration and the opportunity of how we can weave blankets together, because everybody's thread is important, and umbrellaing, because I support and celebrate people like you who are doing what you're doing, because we need more of it. And the more people know what's going on out there, that they can have a profitable business and serve dignity and ethics at the same time, it's a no-brainer. So, it's just about getting the word out there. So if you're listening to this, folks, please do share it. Whether somebody's wanting to start off something small or got something big and they need the wisdom, please do share, because that domino effect of knowledge going out is what shifts and changes everything. This has been a delight, Robert. Thank you.
And Sarah, thank you so much for having me on the show. Thank you all the listeners for listening in. It's been great. And thank you, Sarah, for creating the umbrella, for creating the platform.
Well,
Really
that was
to share
Alison
this out.
Goldman from Synchronicity, and she's been sending me all you beautiful people, and it's that collaboration that I'm having with her to put everybody under this one umbrella. So, we're
Thanks
giving
to
you the
Alison as
box
well.
of chocolates here, folks.
Yeah. And Alison, thank you very much also for making the connection. I really appreciate it.
Yes, and that's the thing. The more good people and different flavors that we have underneath this, the more diversity and creativity that we can show in ways that we can step up and be a part of it, right? The invitation has been sent, folks. RSVP. All right, Robert, thank you so much. And until next time, folks, bye for now. For more wonderful shows like this, please go to selfdiscoveryradio.com, podcasts, and see our lineup. And if you wish to support us, we have a funded button. Please stay tuned for our next show.